Welcome to another exciting episode of the Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Papergoy.
And I'm Mr. Magazine.
And today we're bringing a request from a subscriber, Mr. Magazine.
Okay.
I'm going to read this to you and then let you get started.
No, here we go.
It's two sentences.
Sounds exciting.
It's two sentences. Well, maybe three. This was talking about a video that I did, a haul video, hauling away the sales garage and estate and church. Oh my.
Okay.
So it was a haul video.
Oh, I remember that one.
It was a good one. Hit like and subscribe. He said, "Looks like junk to me. I don't know how you do it. I wish I knew more about vintage. Could you guys do a video on how to identify valuable vintage stuff?" Yes, we can.
Well, for me, it would depend on what your expertise on. I'm an expertise in vintage magazines, vintage toys, maybe even records, but I'm not, vintage stamps I'm not an expert on. Vintage coins I'm not. Vintage pins. So, it depends on what vintage type of products you're looking for I could help you with, but, things that you may know about, I don't, and vice versa, But a lot of this comes with just time and experience of buying collections and weeding out this and that and seeing, oh, this is a scuba gear, this is worth $1,000, or this is an accordion, and you just live and learn along the way when you buy in bulk. If that's what we're going at here.
We can go wherever you want. It's your channel.
Right.
I guess a couple of things that I would say is know as much just basic facts about as many different items as you possibly can. And I'm gonna put Mr. Magazine on the spot here.
Okay.
Couple of things. Matchbooks.
I do not know much about matchbooks. But I would say if someone came in with a collection of them, I think I've had matchbooks, but I would think vintage casino ones are good. Maybe obscure older restaurants are good. Famous restaurants, stuff like that. But again, I'm not an expert. It could be worth $2 or $25. I wouldn't know unless I did some research on it.
Well, I'm even talking more general. Front strike are better than back strike generally because front strike are older. And then front strike was outlawed and they went to back strike. So when you're walking around and you see front strike stuff, you can at least place it as being older. Feature matches, you know what those are?
Well, it sounds like someone's an expert on matchbooks.
I don't know very much. I barely ever buy them. Feature matches are when you open the front up and you look at the matches, there's something on the matches, like a pattern or painting or something like that.
Okay.
Those are feature matches. Those are good.
Okay.
Pinbacks. I forget when it was, 50s or 60s. They changed it so that the pin portion cannot stick out beyond the pin itself because people were sticking themselves.
Sure.
So I was at a sale and they had a whole box of pins, and I saw a New York Giants, and I knew it was baseball because it had the a bat and a ball on it.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And the pin was sticking out beyond. So I said, okay, I know this is an older one. It's not going to be a reprint. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be an older one. And I bought it because it was $1. It turns out it's kind of common. It's worth about $10. Okay. But still, I picked up a $10 pin for $1 just from knowing that.
Right.
But let me ask you another question, Mr. Magazine. I know you're a big baseball fan.
Okay.
How did the New York Giants do last year?
So last year, who won it last year? It should have been Philly, but the Giants won it last year? No.
The New York Giants?
No. Well, New York. I think it's San Fran.
No, I meant New York. And that's where you know enough as well to know that, the New York Giants are no longer in New York.
Right.
So you've got just a little bit of knowledge of baseball, and you say, wait a minute, I know this has to be older. Now you see a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, they've been around for a long, long, long time. Yeah. So that little bit of knowledge isn't going to help you. But New York Giants, Brooklyn Dodgers.
You threw me a curveball.
Keeping with the baseball theme. St. Louis Browns and so on, you begin to see those and you can say, hey, this has to be older because.
Right.
And another thing that I always do when I'm out at the sales is I know enough to know that generally speaking, obviously sealed new old stock is better than unsealed. Sure. So I might be around and I might see something or other sitting on a shelf that isn't even anything that I deal in. And, household goods, like, even old food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I say, wait a minute, this is an unopened package of. This is a little bit better clothes, things like that. Sure. Hey, I know what this is. And how can you tell an older book from a newer book? What's one thing that has happened with books and with all merchandise since about the 1970s with all merchandise, and then the 80s with books?
You asking me?
Well, the computer's not answering me.
Oh.
The UPC symbol, exactly.
I'm a little slow tonight. Sorry about that.
So if you know UPC symbols, you know if it doesn't have one, you can date it to prior to. Zip codes came about, and I forget the exact date, early 60s, and all the various codes for that. Telephone numbers, all these different ways to be able to date stuff. So when you look at something, you at least have enough knowledge that very quickly you can look at it and go, yeah, this is from the 40s versus this is from the 70s versus this from the 90s. And they want $1 a piece on them. I'm going to take a chance on the older items at that.
Yeah.
There are all these different clues about how to identify better in vintage. I know that there are entire websites dedicated to being able to identify a real photo postcard off of what the stamp box on the back is. And
just I'm throwing this out there, just not that this is something I would do nowadays with my knowledge of eBay and the internet. If I want to know what is good vintage items to look for, just go on eBay and type in vintage, highest price, sold. Boom, now you have it. Because you can do highest price, not sold, and a lot of junk's going to come up that's could be vintage, not vintage, or not really worth what they're asking. But if you do sold, now you're looking at items that sold that have the word vintage in them, so most likely they're going to be telling the truth, they're vintage. But now you go highest price, there might be a $25,000 item that accordion or any a pack of vintage toothpaste, anything that at least you get some ideas, like there's a keyword vintage, this is what things are selling for if I ever see this stuff, boom. Even if you go to the top, anything $1,000 and up, $100 and up, but that could help you right there, and wouldn't take very long to learn.
Right, yeah, definitely study as much as you can. I don't generally need those cheats, and that's what I would call them. I don't generally need those cheats when it comes to sports cards, comic books. Books, I'm sure I have a lot of cheats that I know, but I wouldn't even know when to begin, because at this point they're all internalized from having dealt with books for so long. Magazines as well. But these are all things tips that I'm giving you are in areas that I very rarely deal in. But I've learned all those things throughout the years. One of the best sources of information are other dealers and other collectors. When you're walking around, say you're walking around a show, stop and talk to the dealer. You'd be amazed how many dealers, as long as they're a friendly enough person and not busy. Obviously, don't interrupt them to ask them a question about something that you have no intention of buying. But if it's a slow time at a sale, one thing that I always find helps is I definitely will let them know that I'm a fellow dealer. And then they're much more willing to talk to me, because we're kind of step behind the curtain and talk about things that way. Definitely does help with that. And obviously, don't waste all their time and whatever, but ask them about the stuff, and you'd be amazed what they're willing to tell you. Just a plethora of information. And a lot of times, if you're standing at a table buying something or looking through somebody's stock, listen to what's going on around you. And a lot of times, you'll hear the dealers talking to each other, and you'll pick up tidbits. Or you'll hear a collector talking to the dealer going, oh, I know this is good because, and he'll give why, or the dealer will tell why this item is really, really old or really, really good. And just kind of, sneak a little glance over and be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And the more of that you do, now granted, I've got 20 plus years of being out there and hobnobbing with the dealers, lucky me. But you can definitely start as well doing it. It's just you have to have a thirst for knowledge, and you just kind of listen as much as you possibly can. And those few tips that I told you right there, I'm sure every little niche has its own tips as to how you can tell something's good and how to tell this various things. And I remember I used to go to the public auctions all the time, and you would hear the one auctioneer always talked about shabby chic, and I had no idea what that was. And the other, and always would talk about Bakelite, and I didn't know what that was either. And over time, you're just kind of looking, you're like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's what that is. So I started out with zero knowledge. I didn't know what Art Deco was. I didn't know Art Nouveau. I didn't know any of that stuff. I did truly start out with zero knowledge in everything outside of comic books and baseball cards. I didn't know anything about anything. And just over time, I've gone and I've learned, and you can too. And so just pay a lot of attention. That's really what it comes down to. And if you're bored, instead of sitting there and watching a new series on Netflix, or I mean, we all want to keep up with the Kardashians, but instead of doing things like that, do what Mr. Magazine suggested and just go on Completed and just grab any category, whatever category your fancy, whether it's Pez, whether it's collectible pinbacks, whatever it happens to be, lunchboxes, and just start looking through them and start identifying, oh, that is this, oh, that goes for that, really, I had no idea. And if you spend 15 minutes a day going down the rabbit hole of eBay and do a little bit of studying off of that, in no time at all, you'll be an expert, as much as you can be, with at least a wide general knowledge of stuff. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. I definitely want to thank the subscriber for reaching out and suggesting that.
For noticing Papergoy's junk, yes.
It looked like junk to my wife as well, so for what it's worth. Do hit the like button if you could, and we will see you next video.
Take care. Bye-bye.